Hi guys, and welcome to day 2 of Bloo Makes Christmas in 24 days. And in this video we spent the day making mini quiches, and in doing so saved a minimum of £30. Come with me, let's go and do it. So in making these mini quiches, yes, I bought in pastry. But I bought my pastry while it was on offer and while I could find it reduced, and I threw it in the freezer just for making Christmas baking, because, you know, even if I'd bought it in July at 50p, that's going to save me a third of the money from purchasing the pastry to start with. The other thing I did is I used up a bunch of wonky veg that was in our fridge. Now, the onion that I'm cutting here had been peeled the day before for something else, so I decided to use it for this. Anything that you're cutting up to make mini quiches with needs to be a small dice. Okay, so here I've had half a pepper, I've got some spring onions that are past their best. All of it needs to be really, really small. Okay. So the other thing you can do is use leftover bits of ham, bits of salmon, whatever you've got in your fridge, freezer, whatever, and chop that into tiny pieces too. And once all your fillings are prepped, including your cheese, which by the way is best grated on the smallest setting on your box grater if you're using a box grater, or the smallest grater on your food whizzer. Okay, next we're going to get cracking on the eggs. Yeah, see what I did there? Cracking on the eggs. No, I'm sorry, I'll take myself out, it's fine. So I used a whole tray of 30 medium eggs for this, and I just cracked away, which is fine. And as you guys know from watching yesterday's video of my easy peasy pickled eggs, the cost of a tray of eggs for me, because I buy them in the catering packs, is approximately £3, which is pretty good actually, to be honest. So once we've cracked all our eggs in our bowl, we're going to add around about a pint of cream. That's 500 to 600 mils for anyone who's working in that way. It doesn't matter if it's single, double, whipping, whatever. Just cream. Seriously, that's, you know, what it is. On this particular day, I have a big bottle of whipping cream, so I'm using that. And it does just as well. Just make sure that all your yolks are broken and that all your egg mix is well combined, because the last thing you want is to be pouring out your egg mix and a whole yolk land in the middle of a quiche. It's not going to work very well. It'll splatter and you'll have to do the whole thing again. And trust me, by the 80th mini quiche, the last thing you're going to want to do is have to fix something like that. Now, while I was making these, I used 4 different types of pastry. I did use short crust and I used puff, but I used 4 different types. Okay, so, well, 2 different types, but, you know, one was ready rolled and the other one wasn't. So it kind of counts as 4. So it's 1, yeah. Anywho, the point is, this one is ready rolled and it's the short crust. Now my lot tend to be big fans of very plain flavors like ham and cheese, which is fine. So you will probably see me do quite a few of the little quiches that are ham cheese, maybe ham cheese onion, those kinds of derivatives, because I know that they'll get eaten a lot. Like they'll evaporate, let's be honest. Now, when you're rolling out your pre-roll pastry, it could crack like it has there. Don't worry about that, because you can push it all together. You're not going to lose anything. Just give it a shove and it'll hold quite nicely. It's not a bother. Now you need to get yourself a cookie cutter that is at least 1/2 inch to 1 centimeter wider than your little trays that you're using. So I've got little tart tin here, and I'm using the biggest one of my little fluted cookie cutters for it, because it will give me enough room for it to be filled. Okay, you remember this is short crust pastry, so you don't want to fiddle with it too much, because it will shrink very quickly, and we don't really want that happening. But Blue, don't we have to blind bake these? No, my friend, we do not have to blind bake these, because we are only cooking them till the egg is set. We're not cooking them any longer than that. We don't want them fully cooked at this stage, because if we do that and we bring them out of the freezer come Christmas Day or Boxing Day or whatever event you're going to be having, you know, over the holiday period, they will burn. We don't want them overcooked and burnt. So we want the pastry to be a bit blonde, because they will then be able to be heated up beautifully, and the pastry will finish cooking in the oven at that time without the egg becoming overcooked, burnt and hard. Now I tend to keep my leftover pastry scraps. I have 3 reasons for this. 1, either the littles can play with them if they're around. Bam can nibble on them if he's about, because he's just weird. But we accept that. We love Bam just the way he is. And the 3rd reason is that it's always useful to keep some of the leftover pastry, because you never know what you can make with it afterwards. Now, yes, it's short crust. Yes, it'll shrink and you'll have to make allowances for that. But you could make things like little short crust crackers and things like that to go on a cheese board, or to go with dips, etc. later on. And it just saves you another job and another thing that you might otherwise have had to buy. The other thing you can do as well is turn them into little shapes that can go onto pies and pastries, so that you can tell what difference each flavour is, and you haven't had to use up any of your good pastry for that. Now here we go, we're going to start filling these up. Now these ones are just plain ham and cheese. Now as you can see, or you will be able to see, there we go, I have grated my cheese on the smallest grating setting on my box grater. It sits better. You use less of it. It goes so much further, and you only need a small pinch. Now if you're using cheese in your mini quiches, let me suggest you place it on the bottom, especially if you have things like ham in them, because otherwise you can't see the fillings, and when you're making a bunch of different fillings out of whatever you have, the last thing you want is not to be able to really tell what's in each one. So, but it also means that others can see the ingredients within them and they can go, oh, that looks really pretty, but then you'll still get the little cheesy hit underneath without it being overpowering, overwhelming and burning on the top. So each of these mini quiches have less than a teaspoonful of grated cheese on each one. It's just a pinch. Just a pinch. You don't need any more. You need to remember that these are just a couple of bitefuls. To overfill them means that the mouth will be overwhelmed and people may not enjoy that. The last thing anyone wants when they're having just a little bit of a mouthful of something is too much. It needs to be nicely balanced. As you can see here, I've very thinly strip cut some wafer ham. Now this wafer ham we found reduced at the supermarket for 53p a packet, and we bought 4 packets and we threw them in the freezer because, quite frankly, when it's that price, it is perfect to put in the freezer for little projects like this that aren't going to then cost you the earth. Now yes, we picked up 4 packets, but we also left 6 in the fridge that had been marked down. We didn't take all of them. So please be aware when you are going into shops and finding reduced stuff, don't take all of it. There are other people that are going to want some. You know, have what you want or have what you need and leave some for somebody else, because what you're using that will be useful to you later on could be the difference between someone eating that day and not. Now with your egg mix, you're going to want to put it in a more manageable container. If I tried to fill these mini quiches with this bowl of egg mix, it would go absolutely everywhere. So find a smaller jug, fill your jug, give it about 1 inch to 2 centimeters off the top so that you've got plenty of room for pouring and it's not going to just whoosh. Find your balance. Now, these are the first ones that I've made for quite some time and I kind of overfilled them. That one that I just poured there is probably as much egg as you're going to need. I shouldn't have put more in it, and you will see why later on. Okay, you need to remember that the egg mix actually expands. It also has to be carried to the oven. Okay, yeah. So you have to allow for spillage and you have to allow for expansion, and those are the 2 things you need to remember. Each one of these tarts has less than a tablespoon of egg in it. It has the equivalent of maybe 1/3 of an egg with a teaspoon of cream. That's it, honestly. Now, as you can see there, after these have come out of the oven, there is egg mix everywhere, and that egg mix is probably enough for another 6 tarts. I'm not even joking. It's probably enough for another 6 tarts. So be aware of that when you're filling them up. Leave room for spillage and expansion so that you don't have this issue. These mini quiches cook for around about 20 minutes to set the egg on 180 degrees Celsius, which is about 350 Fahrenheit, and it's 5 to 6 gas mark 5, gas mark 6, something around there. So yeah, but like I said, you don't need the pastry to cook all the way through, which is why we don't blind bake it. We just want the egg mix to set. Now once these are cooked, you're going to want to put them on a rack to finish cooling completely before we start boxing them up to go in the freezer. Okay, so I could almost finish the video here, but I want to show you exactly what can happen when you start this process and just how many you will get at the end of it. So remember, we started off with 30 medium eggs, 1 pint of cream, and some random bits and pieces that we found in the fridge. Cut them all down into small strips. We have 4 ready rolled pieces of pastry and 4 blocks of pastry to use, and that's it. That's all we've got. Okay, There's a second block of short crust pastry, and I'm just fixing the crack in the pastry there. It's really simple to do. Don't think that that pastry is gone, because you can use it. Now, out of one sheet of ready rolled pastry, you will get 12 rounds that are big enough for your mini tart tin. Now, the one thing that I will say is a massive difference between here in the UK and Australia. In Australia, our ready rolled pastry is sold in 12 by 12 squares. So 12 inch by 12 inch. That's 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, or a foot by a foot. And you can buy anywhere from 5 sheets to 60 sheets in a pack, ready to go from the freezer section. So you don't have to buy half the pastry on the shelf. You can just go and get one packet, and that should be enough to do everything for the rest of the month, right? Now, I'm aware that pastry companies in this country supply the block, because some people prefer to roll their own pastry. They feel like they've done something towards the process, okay? But for those of us who are running events and parties and stuff like that, and we're just trying to get everything done, especially for Christmas, we really don't want the extra step. We really don't care. Honestly, we don't care. You know, we're just as happy to line up 5 squares of pastry all at once and knock out all our circles. So if anyone is watching from any of the companies that creates ready-made pastry in this country of the UK, please take a lesson from Australia. Please start supplying 12 by 12 ready rolled 1 mil thick squares of pastry. You know, and I will absolutely guarantee that they will start flying off out of the freezer. Now, the reason for that being is that it makes life so much easier, and people are more likely to start baking when they don't have the extra steps to worry about. Okay, so just for goodness sakes, stop. You're supposed to be making convenience. Make it convenient. Here endeth my pastry rant. Just saying. So in this particular quiche, I am doing red onion, salmon, I think it's red onion, salmon, and asparagus, okay? So really, really posh ones, all right? Now, I bought a packet of smoked salmon scraps, which you can get from any supermarket. It's the cheapest packet you can get. It's the trims, all right? That's fine. It doesn't cost you more than a couple of bucks for a packet. Trust me. The asparagus I bought when it was like, I found a big bunch of it at the local corner shop, and it was like $1 a pound a bunch, and they were beautifully thin spears. So I've cut those into basically what would be a dice size, so that you've got lots of little tiny pieces, because as I explained before, smaller is better when it comes to sizings to go into mini quiches. Yeah, mini quiches, less is more every single time. Now, when it comes to the strips of salmon, I've already tossed them in the dill that I prepped and chopped. I tossed it in them already, so I didn't need to worry about fiddling with bits of dill, because it's just got enough around the smoked salmon to give it that enhanced flavor without being overbearing. Now, a little bit of smoked salmon goes a very long way, so only a couple of strips are needed per quiche, but you don't want to be, you know, stingy, But you don't want to be too generous either, because again, these are mini bites. You don't want it be too overbearing in someone's mouth. You want the flavor to be there, but not excessive. Balance. Balance, people. Balance in all things. Moderation. That's what we're talking about. Moderation. I have not added cheese to these ones because I don't think it's necessary. I think that's going a little bit too far. However, if you are going to do a smoked salmon one or an asparagus one and want some cheese in there, I would say do the asparagus on its own with a little bit of the onion, or just on its own with a little bit of cheese underneath. If you're going to do cheese with the smoked salmon, don't use anything more than a ricotta cheese, because it'll just be too much and it'll be very cloying. You want the cheese to be a background, not the front flavor that you get. And as you can see in these ones, I've learnt my lesson and I haven't filled them quite as high. I've given a couple of mil, or about 1/5 of an inch from the top of the pastry for the egg mix. Now, I looked for all kinds of flavors of quiches when I was doing this video to do the costings, and I can't find any this year that are individual smoked salmon ones. Normally they're around, and normally there's asparagus ones too, but there wasn't any at all this year. Now, saying that, this time of year in the UK is not asparagus season. It's not. So it's quite possible that the companies have gone, well, that would be a bit silly to do that, you know, because we'd have to import the asparagus. So they've decided to go on plainer flavors so that that's not a necessity. And smoked salmon as well tends to not be like a seasonal thing at this time of the year. However, smoked salmon is preserved salmon. So I tend to, when salmon is in season, I tend to buy a salmon and I tend to cure it myself, like gravlax, which I have several videos on, and I'll put a card up, and you know, you can find it. And I'll use that in my quiches rather than the smoked salmon, but I haven't actually made one this year. Sometimes I'll buy a trout instead, depending on the price. But I tend to make my own, and I do several different flavors of it so that we have different flavors for different things. I'm going to go over my costings for this, and we can go through that together while I prepare some more of the smoked salmon asparagus quiches, and I'll probably be using up the last of the salmon in this lot and using up the last of the asparagus as well, because you know, that's okay. And look, when you've got lots of scraps of things that you're using, it means that you have more flavors and options for people. You're not just doing one flavor, and just grabbing some wonky veg from in the fridge can change a flavor of something. You know, you're fine. It's all good. Just follow the process. Anyway, costings. So, as I said to you guys earlier, I bought all my pastry while it was on offer. Okay. The blocks of pastry were 2 blocks in 1 pack, and they were 50p. We found those for 50p earlier in the year. We chucked them in the freezer. The ready rolled pastry again was £1 a box, and we chucked it in the freezer when we found it. If we had to buy all that pastry today, not on offer, all the pastry that we used, which was 4 ready rolled fresh pastries, and 2 double blocks from the freezer section would have cost us in total £12. Now I know it sounds like a lot, but quite frankly, when you find the difference, just hold on. Now the pastry is the most expensive thing that I've used here today. Okay, it's cost £3 in eggs for the tray of 30 medium eggs, £2 for the cream, 50p for the ham, which was on offer, but obviously you can buy ham for as little or as £1 a pack. £1 for the salmon trims, 50p's worth of wonky veg from our fridge, and £1's worth of cheese. Now I used £1's worth of cheese, £1 worth of cheese. Now one of the things that we do is we go and buy the 5 kilo block from Food Warehouse. Now that Tanny works for a food delivery company, we can get a similar block of cheese from them and get £10 off or 10% off. Okay, so we tend to buy it from them, but if you get it from Food Warehouse, it's £27 for a 5 kilo block, and you're only using a very small amount of that. But because you're using the small section of your cheese grater, it's going to go way further than you first thought. So in total, we spent approximately £20 on ingredients. Okay, and just quietly, I've just noticed myself doing something that I told you not to, which was put the cheese on the top. Now the reason I said put the cheese on the top, that I've put the cheese on the top for the asparagus ones, is because asparagus tends to float to the top. It tends to be a bit floaty. It when it gets into the egg, and it can burn. So I tend to put the cheese on top when it comes to asparagus, because the cheese will actually protect the asparagus, but you can still see it underneath. That's why. Right. So again, we spent £20 in ingredients. And in total, we ended up making 180 mini quiches of this size. I'll say that again. For £20, we managed to make 180 mini quiches of this size. And the only reason I stopped was because we ran out of pastry. There is still egg mix left, so I could still technically make another probably around 12, maybe 24. I'm not even joking. It's astonishing. Okay, so according to today's prices, if you had to buy if you had to buy 180 mini quiches, okay, for whatever parties or events or buffets or whatever you're planning over the holiday season, the cheapest you can get them from is Iceland. Now they only sell one variety of them. That's their quiche Lorraine. They sell them in boxes of 9. So to get enough boxes, you would need 20 boxes. And they sell them for £2.50 a box. Okay. Which means that is a total cost of £50. Now they do have an offer for 3 for £5, which does bring the price down somewhat, but not entirely. Okay, so you would still be paying quite a lot, and it still would have saved money making them yourself and had a variety of flavors. So that gives us a total savings, if we compare to Iceland's prices or the Food Warehouse's prices, of £30, which is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It really, really is. I am actually quite shocked. Now, if if you look at other places, you will find that your savings are even more. I'll go through those while I roll out this big block of pastry. Now, when you're rolling your pastry, you want to make sure that you turn it regularly so it stays in a reasonable similar shape square. Okay, we're going to try and get this as thin as possible. I like it to be somewhere between 1 mil and 2 mil thick, which is like about 1/8 of an inch. It's very, very, very thin. Almost see-through. Almost see-through. To be able to get it to do that though, every time we do a roll in a direction, we need to pick up the pastry and turn it and flip it over again so that A, it doesn't stick on the table, and B, I don't know, it's just fussy that way. It's pastry. There's no, it's like the cat of the baking world. It's fussy. It's a diva. And you just have to, you know, feed it a cheeseburger every now and again. You know what I mean? When it does come to making things like mini quiches, etc., you do want the pastry to be a lot thinner than you would have it if it was a full-sized quiche. Why? Because it doesn't have so much to hold on to. If it's a full-size quiche, you want it a little bit thicker so that the whole thing doesn't fall apart in your hand or on your plate when you're serving it, all that kind of thing. What we want to do here is to make it so that it holds the filling together, but it's not just a claggy load of pastry in your mouth, because you have to remember that these quiches are only 2 bites, and if all you're getting is thick mouthful of pastry, it's not going to be a very nice experience at all. So the thinner the better. Oh, and also keep up with the counting of how many I get out of this one block of pastry. You'll find that it is a lot better off than buying the pre-rolled sheets. In fact, I'll go you one better. I'll tell you how many I get out. I get 2 dozen. That's 24 mini quiches out of one block of pastry, and there's some left over, which I put together with my leftover pastry scraps. But Blue, you said you stopped making the quiches because you ran out of pastry. Well, yes I did, but this is short crust pastry. If I keep rolling this out, I'm going to have to get a cookie sheet, a cookie cutter that is 3 times the size of this one, because it'll shrink so far down that it'll just be a little disc on the bottom of the quiche. It's not going to be a proper case. So we don't use it for that. We can't use it for that. So just hold your horses, okay? We've got other things to do with it. You'll just get to see it later on. The next week or so, okay? Not today. Not today. I've got other things to do today. I'm busy today. But you'll find out about that tomorrow. Okay, and back to costings. Right, so if you were bought, most of the mini quiches that are for sale are mini muffin sized. So the tiny little pop sized mini muffin sized quiches are the mini quiches that are more readily available at the moment. Now you can buy those in packs of 12 or packs of 15. In Sainsbury's, pack of 12 of those is £3. £3 for a pack of 12 tiny little puffs of wind that it'll be more pastry than filling. Seriously. Ocado have packs of 12. No, they're packs of 15 at Ocado for £5.50, people. £5.50. Like, really? That's 3 more than Sainsbury's, and they're charging £2.50 more for the privilege of having those 3 extras from Ocado. Yeah, nah. M&S mini packs of the mini quiches, again, similar to the ones in Sainsbury's, £5.50. So they're charging £5.50 for them as well, but for 12. I was like, what? Seriously? It's not even like they're homemade. They're made by factory, you know, they're made by machines. There's no love that goes into this stuff at all unless you make it yourself. Now, the only place that I really found any kind of decent sized package of mini quiches that were frozen, okay, so they're already part cooked, like the ones that we're doing, and they're closest to the things that we've done, right, is Frankdale frozen mini quiches. Now, they do a box of 48, so that's 4 dozen. Okay, 4 dozen for £19.62. Yeah, look, we made 180 for that price. Nah. And if you're going to turn around to me and say, Blue, but the cost of the gas and all of that kind of stuff, and it's like, do you know what? It cost me 9p an hour. We had the oven on from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock in the evening. So that's 4 hours. That cost me 18p of gas. 18p of gas to get these done. No, 32. 36. 36p's worth of gas to get these done. On top of the cost of ingredients. So I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered by that. You know, I'm really, really not. That's not my biggest concern. We do have a gas oven, a gas stove, so it's a little bit cheaper because we don't really use the gas for anything else. We haven't got the heating on at the moment at all because, you know, we have blankets. So we're using those, but we're saving up our cost of gas, etc., for our cooking over the next few weeks, because the cost of gas is to heat the house is ridiculous, and I mean it's ridiculous. The cost of running the gas for the heating in our house, it pushes the gas up to 76p an hour. Now we have 1, 2, 3 of our radiators in the main part of the house all switched off. We have the one off in the kitchen. We have one of them off that's next to the freezer and the dryer. That's turned off permanently. And there's one in the hallway that's turned off as well. There's only one on the one in the office, sorry. So the one in the hallway's on, the one in the bathroom's on, the one in our bedroom, and the one by our couch. That's it. They're the only ones that are on. So you got 1, 2, 3, and the ones in the bathroom and the hallway, they're only little ones, so they're not even full sized, but it costs us 76p an hour to run them. The oven costs 9p an hour to run. I'm doing the math, and trust me, when that oven's on and it's on for any amount of time, it does heat up the main living space of the house without a problem. I'd rather cook, personally. Okay, so you guys saw that I actually did roll out a bit of that pastry again and cut out some cookie cutter sized pieces. As you can see, in a couple of, in the tray that I'm using now, some of those have shrunk. They've shrunk already. This is why we don't want to reuse the short crust pastry for doing these kinds of quiches, because they will do that. But you can use them for anything else, so for dippers and things like that, and they work really, really well for that. So I wouldn't worry too much. I've had, you know, just, yeah, use what you got. So these ones are another batch of ham and cheese because, like I said, that's what goes really, really well here. The salmon ones are probably going to be mine. And the same with the asparagus because, you know, they just happen to be my favourites, you know. And Christmas isn't just about one person, it's about everyone, which is why making your own means that you have a lot of variety. If you were to just buy these, there isn't much variety. There really isn't, unless you buy the full-sized quiches and cut them into squares. Even then, the full-sized quiches are only about 6 inches across, which is like half a foot, 15 centimetres, you know, and they're charging you £2.50, £3 for one of those. And the pastry is so thick, you could actually hurt someone if you threw it. So please don't. Just don't. Just make your own. Put a little bit of time aside. Do you know what we were doing while we were doing this? And Tony was helping me because what he was doing was picking up the trays from me when I filled them up, putting them in the oven for me so I didn't have to get up and down all the time because my knees were really, really hurting. We were watching Jackie Chan movies in the background. That's what we were doing. We were watching TV together and doing this. And you know what? I would absolutely choose that afternoon with Tanny watching Jackie Chan movies, making these, then fighting our way through the supermarkets at this time of the year, or any time of the year, let's be honest, on a Sunday. Any day I would choose this over that. Absolutely any day of the week at all. At the end of the day, it started to become a bit of a challenge. He'd come out and go, "Are you still making these?" Yeah. "Haven't you run out of pastry yet?" "No." "How many are we gonna have?" "Enough." That was our conversation. And he's like, "Still going? So you still got ingredients?" I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "You haven't made any more?" I went, "No." So we just had those little bits of ingredients I made at the beginning, and we kept going, and we just kept making them until we had nothing left. In fact, all we have left at this point is a small amount of egg mix, some leftover pastry, and half of a leek that I also prepped. So because we already used half of that leek mix, the chopped leek. So, you know, I mean, seriously, it just became fun. You know, we turned it into a game. It became a challenge in the end, you know, and these don't have to be chores. In the end, we were scrounging around to try and find containers to put them in the freezer. And the next challenge will probably have to be rearranging the freezer because, you know, when we took all the soups out the other day, they kind of created a hole that just got dumped with things. So the whole thing needs to be fixed. But, you know, that's okay. It's okay, you know. Turn it into a challenge. See how many pastry rounds you can get out of one sheet of pastry. See how thin you can roll it for yourself. You know, find challenges to keep you going. Find more different ways of changing the ingredients that you have on the table and putting different flavor profiles into different ones. You know, add a few herbs and spices and things like that. A little bit of mix. You know, it's never going to hurt. Back in 2001, 2002, I had my own bistro in Australia, and one of the things that we used to make a lot of, because we also had a lunch table because it was in a bowls club, was quiches and pies. And I used to make hundreds of these things, hundreds. Every day there would be 5 or 6 different flavors of quiches, completely different ones. There would be no two the same every single day. Okay, the next week you might find your favorite back on, but in the week there would never be two the same flavor, right? So, you know, it just depended on what we had. We did things like sun-dried tomato and char-grilled capsicum or peppers, you know, things like that. We'd do mushroom ones. We'd do garlic mushroom ones just to flavor it up a bit, you know. Chicken and mushroom quiche. That's incredible. One of Tanny's favorites is a what he calls the breakfast quiche. Okay, so what's in that? You've got bacon, sausages, a little bit of black pudding, because he's weird that way. Well, we both like it, so it's not a problem. And you only use like little bits of it. Mushrooms and some sliced fresh tomato on top. And that is his bestest favorite. In fact, if you gave him a slice of that for Christmas, for his Christmas breakfast, he would absolutely adore it. He would absolutely adore it. So we have 3 main events that we are running over the holiday period. We've got Christmas Eve, which is when some of our kids are coming around with the grandkids, and they're going to be working on Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. So they're coming over to spend Christmas Eve with us. So that's when we're going to have our equivalent of Christmas dinner. And I'm going to be doing things like, I have 2 chocolate fountains. One's going to have gravy, one's going to have cheese sauce, and we're going to have things like the roast beef and the roast turkey and the roasties and the Yorkshire puddings and the pigs in blankets and the little baby toad in the holes and all of that kind of stuff. We're basically going to fondue dinner, okay? That's what we're going to do, and it's going to be loads of fun. Now, Christmas Day, Tanny and I have to ourselves. For the first time since we got together in 2018, we finally are having a Christmas to ourselves. So even though we had a Christmas that technically would have been to ourselves a few years ago, it wasn't, because we were looking after our elderly neighbour, and he came and spent Christmas with us as well, because we wanted to make sure that he had what he needed. So we have decided that Christmas Day is going to be a PJ and Munchie Day. But what we mean by a Munchie Day is homemade Chinese food day. So tomorrow, you're going to have to look out for tomorrow's video, guys, because I'm making my own char siu pork. Yeah, I am. Now, if you got things like char siu pork and stuff around, char siu pork in a quiche is absolutely amazing. Just don't put cheese with it. Honestly, it's incredible. Absolutely amazing. And you can add a little bit of whatever, like a little tiny bit of flavoring to the egg mix, and it just enhances it. It's actually amazing. I'm obviously not doing that this time because I haven't made it yet when I'm making these, so that's not happening. So don't look for it, because it ain't happening. But I will be doing that tomorrow. That'll be out on video tomorrow. So that's something to look out for. But that means that I will be making our own spring rolls. Now, I'll make 2 different sized ones. I'll make the big ones, which will have lots of different yummy things, like a bit of veg and a bit of bean sprout and some char siu pork, bit of prawn, bit of chicken, all wrapped up into one big roll. And I'm also going to be doing lumpia, which are the Filipino mini pork spring rolls, because I absolutely adore those, and to me it's not Christmas without having them. So I'll be making some of those as well. I'll be making Tanny's favorite. He loves Chinese curry. I finally found the Chinese curry paste that he really loves. So I'll be making him one of those, and I will probably be making something else for me because I prefer more traditional Chinese recipes. Now I'm quite happy to have things like sweet and sour sauce and stuff like that, but I really like the ones that make everybody else kind of, you know, cringe a bit. Instead of spending money on getting a takeaway, I'm going to be making everything from scratch. So I'm going to be doing things like sauteed chicken on skewers, probably sesame king prawns on toast, you know, barbecue spare ribs, that kind of thing. Maybe some salt and pepper chicken pieces, you know, all that kind of yumminess that we all come to love, but it's so expensive these days, it's ridiculous. The point will be for us that we'll be hanging out in our PJs, putting our feet up, putting whatever we want to on TV of the worst and the best of Christmas movies. We'll have probably Christopher Lee's Christmas album going in the morning, and if you haven't heard it and you're a rocker, how dare you even call yourself that, you know, because awesome. So I can't wait, honestly. I'm really looking forward to it. But what I want to do is produce food that we can just put on the coffee table and grab and go when we want to, because we don't need to get up, you know. So lots of little finger foods that are all Chinese finger foods, yummy things, and a couple of, you know, actual dishes. It's going to be amazing. So altogether, we made 8 different flavors in these quiches. Now, the ones that we made this time round, we made ham and cheese, which we've seen quite a few of. Ham, cheese and leek. We also did ham, cheese and red onion, so that actually makes 9 different ones. We also did salmon and asparagus, and we did asparagus. We also did 3 onion and cheese, which is the leeks, spring onions and red onion and cheese. Okay, we did ham, spring onion and pepper. We did mixed vegetables, and we did leek and cheese. So those are the ones that we did. That's a huge variety, and it's going to have something there for everybody. Are we worried about mixing the flavors? No, not really. In the boxes that we've put them in, which you will see later on, we're not really that worried about it. We don't have any major issues with anyone with eating in our family, except when it comes to things like mince and stuff like that. The kids tend to be fine with having things that they recognize, and they're more likely to try different flavors if it's in a shape that they recognize. So they recognize that these are quiches, and they know they like quiches, so they're going to try all the different ones, and they're going to be happy doing that. So that's what we're going to be doing. So they'd just be encouraged to eat whatever they want. So you'll be very pleased to know that at this point, this was the last batch that I actually filmed. Yay! I hear you all cry, yay, finally, but why is there still 20 minutes of video? Because I got to show you when they came out of the oven. And I got to show you us boxing them up. And then I got to show you whatever pictures that we got, because trust me, by the end of doing this, we were at the point of, yeah, we don't care whether we got the pictures or not. We really don't care whether we got the pictures or not. So you've got what you've got, okay? I'm just saying. Been making quite a few of these in front of you guys, and you've seen just how many we've gotten out of certain ingredients that we've made, okay, or prepped up. And to be honest, it still looks like some of the packets haven't even been used. Oh, the other flavor, we did another flavor as well. Okay, sorry, I forgot all about it now, and I just caught a peek of it there because that tray is now sitting on it. We grew some spaghetti squash this year, and I brought the little one out and I roasted it the other day with butter. And so in some of the quiches there is spaghetti squash and cheese with a little bit of chili flake. Just a little bit of chili flake. And honestly, I can't wait for those. I'm really looking forward to those. In fact, they'd be really nice if you put them with bacon as well. But, you know, obviously we haven't done that. What am I going to do with the rest of the ingredients that are left over? Well, actually, I'm probably going to make a leek tart. That's probably the easiest way to go. We still have all of that pastry left over that is offcuts and all of that kind of stuff, and as long as I drape it over the outside of whatever quiche dish or whatever that I'm going to be using, or the cake tin that I use, it should be fine. And then we can just cut them off and trim it so that it looks tidy. You know, no problem with that at all. None. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, that's actually 10 different flavors of these little quiches that we made, just with whatever we could find in the fridge, just with some pastry that we bought while it was on offer. So we're not breaking the bank on ourselves, you know. But even if we did buy it at full price, it's still not breaking the bank on yourselves. It's only breaking the bank on yourselves if you're going to have to buy them all ready-made. You know, this is the kind of stuff you can get your kids involved with. You want to get your kids excited about food? Get them involved in the process of preparing it. You know, how many of your kids really love playing with Play-Doh? Get them cutting out the pastry. You know, how many of your kids want to play in the bowls of stuff that you've prepared when you're doing it, and you're constantly snapping at hands to get them off? Get them to put the fillings in, you know. Get the older ones to manage the egg mix, to pour in the egg mix. Teaches them how to be a little bit careful with their ingredients. Trust me, it's great. Or you could be in charge of the egg mix if, you know, if you really don't trust them that much. Yeah, you be in charge of it. It's all good. The biggest takeaway of doing this is the sense of pride from doing it yourself. The satisfaction of being able to do it yourself, and the satisfaction of knowing that you have done it yourself. I mean, anyone can go to the shops and buy boxes of pre-made stuff, you know, but not everyone knows your family. Not everybody knows your circumstances, and not everybody, you know, is the same as you. So if you can't find the flavours that you want and your best option is to make them, get yourself and your kids involved. You know what the kids are going to enjoy about this, and what they're going to remember about that Christmas? It's not going to be what they got for Christmas. It's not going to be, you know, who turned up. It's going to be that they spent some time with mum or dad, or even their big sister or big brother, their aunt, their uncle, whoever you are to them, and made these. And then they were served at a gathering. And then they were able to run round everybody and go, Nana, guess what? You have to try one of these because I did this. You know? Or it's getting, you know, your props and your brownie points for turning around, people saying, oh, I didn't see these in the shops. Well, you wouldn't have, because I made them. And seeing their face just go, oh, you know? There's a lot of rainy afternoons coming, especially on the weekends, where the kids are going to be just like, you're going to be tired and you've been working all week, and I get it, and you just want to chill out. But you know what? These kinds of jobs are really, really chill, and you can do it, put a movie on and just chill out and do it. It's not that difficult, I promise. To be fair, I can't sit and watch TV without doing something with my hands anyway, so this is the perfect job for me. I'm not going to lie. And, you know, a lot of us are the same. A lot of us are the same. So, you know, just make use of the time that you have. Make use of what you can do right now. And make some memories. Do something a bit special for yourself. And don't think that you have to cancel everything because you can't afford to do the stuff. Just because you can't afford to buy it doesn't mean that you can't afford to make it. And as we've shown, you save a bare minimum of £30 making these yourself. So next, still some with ham. There's still with ham? Seriously? How many of those did I make? Have we got like 30 tubs of like just ham and cheese ones? No, we don't. I think I did like 6 dozen. Yeah, I think I did 6 dozen. Yeah, there's about 6 dozen that are ham and cheese. But like I said, they will be the firm favourite and they will go very, very quickly. Whereas the other ones, yeah, it doesn't matter. It just gives people a bit of a flavour of something different, you know, something. Now, this is how we're packing them up. We've got ourselves some 2-litre ice cream containers, which if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll see that I got from a catering company, catering supply store. It's cheaper to buy the 2 litres and 4 litre ice cream containers with the lids separate because they're all the same lids than it is to go and buy Tupperware, because I could get 30 of each of these and the equivalent lids for a fraction of the cost of going and buying plastic boxes from wherever. So what you want to do is you want to line it as much as you can with parchment paper, and you want to have 3 or 4 pieces ready to go because you want to have those in between each layer of the pastries. So we're going to put 6 in a row, in a layer. Okay, only 6. You only want 6 in a layer, because any more than that and you're going to squish them up. You don't want them in between each other because we want them not to be frozen in a lump. Okay, that's the point of putting the paper in between. Okay, so you don't want to ruin that by putting 2 in the gaps, which you could do, but just don't bother. So another layer, and we're going to get 2 dozen in each of these boxes. In some of the boxes we got 2.5 dozen. I'm not even kidding. We got 2.5 dozen in some of these boxes. It's just bonkers. Really, really bonkers. If you don't have parchment paper and you've been using ready rolled pastry, use the paper from the pastry. You will get 3 or 4 pieces big enough for one of these boxes. Okay, so just use what you have. Reuse that paper because you can, and it is perfect for this job. Plus you're not chucking it in the bin, are you? You're putting it in there ready for use, so it's got a life before it hits, you know, the wastage. I don't have any plastic boxes. How am I going to freeze them down? Okay, so this is what you do. You get your baking trays, you've got your freezer bags probably, or even if you've just got plastic bags. Plastic carrier bags will work, okay? Get them all on baking trays, baking sheets, all right? Put them in the freezer overnight, but you need to have them in one layer. Don't put 2 on top of each other because they will stick and then they'll be ruined. So just put them all side by side on a tray in the freezer. Then you can put another tray on top to freeze. Just be very, very careful. You don't want too much weight on the bottom ones because they'll squish. Freeze them. Get them frozen. Put them in your baggies, whether they're freezer bags with a Ziploc, whether they are plastic bags because that's all you have, you know, plastic carrier bags, you can do that. Just make sure if it's a plastic carrier bag, wrap it round several times before you close it, and just make sure that they are kept fairly safe. Now what you can do, if that's the case and you are using a plastic carrier bag, is that you can put a piece of cardboard in the bottom of the bag and have them layered from there, and put the pieces of paper in between each layer. There's a lot of boxes floating around the place this time of year, so you shouldn't be short of cardboard, okay? And just put that there so it's got a little bit of stability in the bottom of the bag. All right, and then you're going to put your layers of parchment paper or pastry paper in between each layer of the mini quiches and tie up the bag. Okay, I would actually double bag it if I was going to use carrier bags. I would double bag it personally. If you are going to use the freezer bags, then you want to have them frozen but have just two layers and sideways. Or if you have the freezer bags that open at the bottom so that they've got a flat base, then you can pile them up and do taller, you know, layers. So about 5 or 6 or whatever, depends on the size of the bag. But don't do them so much that, you know, they're going to end up squashing each other, because you don't want that either. Blue, what do we do to reheat them? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Can we cook them from frozen? Do we have to defrost them? What do we do? Right. This is what you do. Okay. If you want to cook them from frozen, cook them from frozen. You can do that. Just have your oven on 200C or 360. Yeah, 360F or 6 gas mark 6. Okay, that's what you're going to want. They're going to take about 20 minutes. All right, and you just put them on trays in the oven. If you want to use your little tart trays to put them on so that they're a little bit more stable and they're not going to lose their bottoms, then you can do that. I choose not to do that, and I will tell you for why. As they're cooking, they can and will release some liquid. And nobody likes a soggy bottom at Christmas, okay? So what you can do is you can use a little cake tray in the tray that you're putting your little quiches on. Put them on those racks, and then they will cook all the way around, and any excess liquid will drip from it into the tray at the bottom, but it will be away from your pastry. This won't dry out anything, okay? It won't dry out anything. All it will make sure is that your pastry is nice and crispy all the way around without getting a soggy bottom. And that's what we want. If you're one of these people that needs to defrost everything before you put it in the oven, which is fine, and you're allowed to do that, and that's fine, not a problem in the world, you're going to want to make sure that they're all out of the freezer the night before you're going to use them. And you're going to have to put them in the trays that you're going to cook them on and have them all lined up ready to go. You do not want them defrosting on top of each other. If they are defrosting on top of each other, you will find that they will stick. They will stick to the paper. They will stick to each other. It is not going to be a pleasant experience. So if you are going to do that, defrost them onto the trays that you are going to use to put them straight in the oven. Okay? These will be fine if left in a kitchen overnight on the bench at Christmas. In winter, Aussies, shut your ears. In winter, in your kitchen, they will be fine overnight on the bench covered. Just make sure that they're out of reach of cats, dogs, and all of those creatures. I don't let any of those in my kitchen, so, you know, it should be fine. The only thing I have to worry about is a random Tanny in his midnight feasts. But even he would probably leave these alone, to be fair. He knows his life is just not going to be worth it otherwise. So what you saw sitting out on those racks is about half of what we did yesterday. Half. Half. We were still making them, and then we were running out of racks. So I had to hurry up and start boxing them up, which is what we were doing. So yeah, that's how we made our mini quiches, and we have enough for, let's have a look, we'll have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, possibly 11 adults, 4 kids, and whoever else will turn up on those days or around that time. So we've got enough to do like 8 of these mini quiches per person. 8. Will we probably all use them on the same day? Probably not. But I can tell you this, the kids all go home with a little box of yummies, so that they don't have to worry about buying tea or getting tea for themselves. So they don't need to worry about cooking the next day. So they all take leftovers with them from the buffet on Boxing Day. So they don't need to worry about any of that. And they're always very grateful to do so. And to be honest, we're quite pleased they do it as well, because, you know, we get faced with it and it's like, oh man, we've been sitting there making this for weeks now. Do we really have to eat it as well? I mean, that just sounds a little bit over excessive. Pleased to know we're almost at the end and we've almost boxed up the last box. Yes, we have. I've got to admit, by the end of doing this, I was grateful for a brew and putting my feet up and having a chocolate biscuit and just being left alone for the rest of the evening. In fact, Tanny and I just looked at each other and just went, nah, no more. We're tired now. Neither of us bothered to cook. We couldn't be bothered cooking. We didn't want to eat any of the quiches because obviously we would have had to cook them for a bit longer. And we were just done. We were just done at this point. Oh look, there's some of the cheesy ones, and there's the leek and cheese ones, and there's some of the mixed onion ones. They look amazing. I'm not going to lie, they are amazing. I really can't wait till Christmas to get to try some of these. And we weren't actually tempted to try them on the day at all, because neither of us are like that. We just weren't. We didn't want to. So we've come to the end, and here they are in the freezer. Yes, I know it's dark. It was 4 o'clock this morning. Give me a break. But yeah, and yes, I know my freezer needs some help and it needs some work. But there you go. We've got a load of containers all full of mini quiches. The freezer does need sorting out. I will sort it out. Thank you for hanging out with me as far as you did. I love you guys heaps. Please do give the video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I know it was very long, but you know what? The process was worth it. And I will see you guys again tomorrow for day 3 of Bloo Makes Christmas in 24 days. Bye!